Alright, hello everybody. My name is Chris from the Dripping Springs High School debate team. I am a varsity policy debater, and I am really excited to be able to help my novice friends in how to use verbatim, which is probably one of the most important Word document tools you will ever use in your debate career, whether you are in Congress or PF, LD, policy, any real event where you're giving speeches and answering questions. Verbatim is going to be your best friend, so you want to know how to use it. Alright, so for this video, basically it's just going to be going over the basics of how to use verbatim to format your evidence the same way, and basically how to cut a card. That's going to be a part of it. So let's begin. I chose this article by The Hill in order to demonstrate the capabilities of verbatim to y'all. I decided to use this because, I actually have to do work for next year for the policy topic, so I decided, why not knock out two birds with one stone? But the first thing you want to do is you want to highlight whatever your article, and you want to copy and paste it into a blank Word document. Once you've done that, next thing you generally want to do is you want to make sure that it's all been condensed already. This is a bad example because that's already been condensed, but if you, I'll just demonstrate, put some spaces in here, demonstrate it. So we got all the spaces in our article, totally grammatically correct and everything. Basically what you're doing is you just want to highlight all of it. Make sure you have the verbatim toolbar open, which for Mac users will be this little icon in the upper left corner next to your create a blank page or blank document icon, and that should open up your verbatim toolbar real quick any day now. Okay, there we go. So you'll notice that on the toolbar there are these certain options at the top that have F key numbers next to them. Those are very handy for shortcuts. So basically what you can do is, for example, if you have text copied, then you don't have to necessarily do Command V or Control V. You can just hit F2 once you have the toolbar open, and it'll paste that body of text in. But for our intents and purposes, we want to use the F3 shortcut, which is condense, which does what the name suggests. It condenses all the text into one paragraph. And Word is doing that right now. Boom. Everything's in one paragraph. Easy peasy. So the next thing we want to do is we want to make sure that everything is the same and there is no hyperlinks or bold text that we don't necessarily want in there remaining. So the next thing we want to do is making sure everything is still highlighted is to hit F12, which basically clears everything out and makes everything the basic Calibri 11-point font. So once you have this, you have the beginning of a card. So you have now cut the evidence into a one paragraph, and you have made it so that it is easy to read and maybe doesn't have a strange font like some websites might use on their documents, or especially with like copying PDFs over to Word. It's sometimes has very strange spacings and fonts, so you want to be able to make sure that you get all that out the way. So that's all really interesting. The next thing we need to do is we want to underline the stuff we want to read in a speech, because this is a little bit much to read, especially with the time constraints. So the next cool thing that verbatim allows you to do is, if you don't want to go all the way over here and click underline and then go highlight a different one, you can highlight that and you can hit the F9 key, and that'll underline it as well. So it does the exact same thing, except you can just push a button and it'll do it instead of you having to go all over here and hit underline and all that stuff. So that's pretty interesting. So you can just do a little bit of these things. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. Yeah, so you can highlight some of these things. Make sure that you have, or underline, excuse me, make sure you have like what you want to read. I'm just underlining random things for y'all so you can see how to do it. Now, once you've underlined the important parts of the article, you don't want all this extra stuff clogging up the document. You don't want to be able to have to like scroll through all this useless information that you're not reading. So one of the neat things is you can use the 8-ball feature, which is the shrink. This doesn't have a shortcut. You just have to go up there and click the button. But you click it, and then what it does is it shrinks all of the non-underlined text. So if your text is not underlined, it gets shrinked, as long as it's in the same paragraph, of course. But as you can see, it has shrunk all the text that is not underlined. And that's very useful because now I have way less to scroll through, and I can just read the important stuff because it pops out on the page. Another really interesting thing that Verbatim allows you to do is you can, highlight things. So if I so chose, I could use the F12 or F11 shortcut in order to highlight these lines so that I could be able to read them. And I will highlight this in a different color to illustrate a unique tool that Verbatim allows you to do. So, we've highlighted our article. Now, we don't necessarily want the highlighting in the same paragraph to be different colors. So, what we can do is we can go here to Format, and we can go down to Standardized Highlighting. Basically what that does is it goes throughout the document, and it makes every highlighting the same color, so you don't have any discrepancies. So as you can see, this was blue, and now it is yellow. That's really cool. There's a few other interesting things. There are titles that you can put on your evidence. For example, if I wanted to, at the very top of a document, I wanted to title the whole document. For example, oh, I don't want that. For example, oh dear. Oh, it doesn't matter. For example, if I want to title the document 1NC Verbatim Practice, then that's really cool. Makes it really big and bold, not necessarily highlighted unless you want it to be. I don't. So, but that's really cool. Other options you have are the hat, which are a little bit smaller. Doesn't have the box around it, but still has the same effect. Double underline for emphasis. Then there's also the block effect, which is a little bit smaller, only one underline, but that basically allows you to basically make arguments that are maybe not more central, but more like this is answering the disadvantage. This is answering your claims about my affirmative action. Anything like that. Really, it really depends on what you want to do. Usually it's not ideal for you to use the pocket for something like heading up individual cards, which is why they have this nifty tag feature, which basically just bolds the text. So for example, if I wanted to say that this card, because I want to read like a very short summary at the beginning of the evidence in order to like sum it up and be like, this is what the evidence says, and then go in and read the evidence. So if I want this to say, Democrats will lose the midterms if immigration policy comes to the table. So then I have that. The next neat thing it does is it allows you to cite your source. So I don't really care about who actually wrote this since I'm just using this for demonstrative purposes. So I'll say this was written by John Doe on February the 13th, 2001. So that basically what that does is it bolds the text, but as you can see, it does not make it a title you can jump to in the sidebar, which is another interesting thing that I really enjoy about the different features and headings that Verbatim wants you to use. So it's still here, you can still read it very easily, but it is not confusing, it does not clutter up this area for you. So once you've gotten through all of that and you're like, okay, I've made this evidence, but oops, I made a mistake, I don't actually like this highlighting or underlining at all, I need to go back and redo the entire article. So what you can do for that is you can use this clear feature again. You just highlight the article, clear it, for some reason it doesn't like to take away the highlighting if it's been done with the F11 shortcut. So you can just go back and redo that, and it clears all the formatting. And that's one of the really interesting things I like about Verbatim. It makes it really easy for you to do mundane tasks that would take super long or take a valuable time you could have spent researching or creating evidence. So one of the other interesting things it allows you to use is there's these different tools that you can use, such as the timer, which if you click it, apparently I do not have that installed, but basically what happens if you do have it installed, you click this, it just pops up a timer in the corner of the screen, you know, start, stop, etc. But you know, it pops that up in the corner and you can click start or stop it. Nowadays a lot of people just use like cooking timers or kitchen timers or the phones for timing, and most judges are alright with that, so it really depends on what you want to do. And there's all these different cool things you can do. You can convert this to a back file, which basically just makes it less important, secretes it away on your computer. It's also really neat because it accesses like your computer and will be able to copy this document, so it'll just be like attach this document to an email, for example. So if you click this, if you're on a Mac, the mail application will pop up, so not Gmail or anything like that, but the actual application, and then you can enter someone's email and it'll email them the document. That's interesting. Copy to USB, for example, if you have a USB plugged into your computer at any time, and like for example you're about to get up and give a speech and you want to give the USB with this evidence on it to the other team so they can follow you, because in policy a lot of the time there's a lot of spreading, which is basically just really fast speaking, and it's not necessarily easy to keep up like flowing with that, which I will cover flowing in a later video. But basically what this allows you to do is it just takes the document and saves it onto the USB drive. Super simple. And then this is for uploading to the wiki for debate, but don't be concerned with that. Mr. Holmes or one of the senior debaters will help you with putting your cases and negative arguments on the wiki if you need to. So another interesting thing Verbatim allows you to do is, let me just highlight this stuff while I talk. Another interesting thing Verbatim allows you to do is it allows you to make it so that you can only see what you are going to be reading in the speech. So for example, if we just go through here and just underline some random things, shrink that. What you can do is you can go up here to the View tab, you can click it, and then it has these different viewing options. I usually like to keep it on the document map plane because of this little sidebar thing allows you to jump around the document to different articles and to different pieces of evidence you have on the document. So I really generally keep it in that format. One very interesting thing it does is it allows you to turn on invisibility mode, which I'll demonstrate, which basically just takes away or makes as invisible all of the text that is not a title, a tag, a cite, or underlined. So that makes it very easy so you don't, so for example, if you have a really long article that you're not reading all of it and you just want to read the important stuff without scrolling through, 4 pages worth of text, then you can turn on invisibility mode and it'll only show the underlined and title text pieces. And then it's really easy, you just go, you push it again, it turns it off, and everything appears back. Magic. Alright, and one other thing that is really interesting about Verbatim is that, for example, if you're highlighting things and half of your document has been highlighted in a different color, what you can do, and you want to make it all the same because otherwise it looks really wonky. So what you can do is you can go to the format and you can click standardized highlighting, which basically changes all the highlighting to the color you have here in your highlighting tab. So as you can see, this was purple, this was yellow, all this down here was yellow as well. Now it's all purple. Magical. And this is just for like appearance purposes, aesthetic. Don't want anything to look out of place. Then there's a lot of these other things that are not necessarily important. Remove hyperlinks is important. So like, for example, if you're copying an article and it's a link to another article and you accidentally click it in the middle of the speech and it takes you out of your speech document, it opens that article, that's really bad, because then you have to go back to your speech document, you lose time, you get thrown off, etc., etc. But this just removes all the hyperlinks in the document. And you can explore these different formatting tools at your own pace. They're not really important for just general card cutting. And then case list. This is all like adding documents to your wiki. That'll all be, usually until you are really committed to debate. You usually don't put things on the wiki if you're a novice. But then, if you don't like this layout, or you think it's weird, or you need help with the verbatim setups, then you can go to the settings tab. You can go to verbatim help. You can get a cheat sheet about how to use the shortcuts best effectively, and you can go to the settings of verbatim and set up the things that you don't set up in the initial setup process, because they may take a little longer, or they're just more confusing. Just a few final things. Another very interesting thing about verbatim is it allows you to create speech documents, which are documents dedicated to only the things you're going to be reading in the speech, in a round. So, this over here is kind of like this, create new document, but it makes it a speech document. And then that ties into this little blue arrow buddy over here, which will send all the text in this document over to that speech document. So it's not like you don't have to go through and copy and paste everything. You just click this, and boom, it copy and pastes itself. Really easy, real fun. This choose document allows you to choose what document you want to send the text to, and then arrange windows is exactly what it sounds like. It'll just arrange everything so that you can look at all the Word windows you have open at once. So I hope I was able to help you better, or learn how to use verbatim. I hope that verbatim will be your best friend in your debate career, and I hope that you will have good luck, good speeches, and become the speech god you always knew you could be. Thank you.